Video 52, the circumference and area of circles. Let's start by defining a circle. A circle is a set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a fixed point. Right? The center of a circle is the fixed point from which the points in the circle are the same distance. So if you look here, all these lines are the same distance from the center of the circle. The distance from the center of the circle to any point on the circle is what we call the radius. So this right here, this line, goes from the center point to the edge of the circle, is called the radius. The distance across the circle through the center is called the diameter. So the line that goes completely across the circle is what we call the diameter. The circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle. It's kind of like finding the perimeter of a circle, but we call that circumference. So if I were to go all the way around my circle, we would call that the circumference. So let's apply some of this information. Circumference of a circle. The circumference of the circle is the product of pi, which for pi, we're going to use 3.14, and the diameter are twice the product of pi and the radius. All right, let's think about that. The diameter is the full distance across our circle here. The radius is half that distance, so 2 radiuses equals the diameter. So that's what this definition means. So I can find circumference by taking pi times diameter, or I can find circumference by taking 2 radiuses times pi. And that's because this part and this part are the same. Now here's a diagram that shows the diameter and the radius of a circle. Now, for this example, let's say that I want to find the circumference of the circle. Well, I'm going to use my formula because I know the diameter. Circumference equals diameter times pi. So if I were to rewrite that, it would be circumference equals 9 times 3.14. Now 3.14 is an approximation of pi. So I'm going to use this to say it's approximately. So the circumference, if I multiply these two, is approximately 28 and 26 hundredths of a meter. And that would be the product of these two. Let's look at another example. Now for this one I know the radius. So circumference equals 2 of the radiuses times pi. So circumference equals 2 times 14 times pi. Well, 2 times 14 is 28, which is also what the diameter would be, times pi. And if I multiply 28 times pi, I get 87 and 92 hundredths, and it's feet. It's measured in feet. So that would be the circumference of this circle here. Here's another circle. This time we know the diameter. Circumference equals diameter times pi. So circumference equals 1.2 or 1 2/10 times pi. If I multiply these two out, I get 3 and 768 thousandths millimeters, and that equals my circumference. So finding the circumference of a circle is easy. All you really need to remember is that the circumference equals diameter times pi. And if you know that, you know that the diameter equals 2 radiuses because it's twice the distance across the circle from the radius. So for instance, this one, if I put another 14 inches here, that's the diameter, or 2 radius. So here's the formula you need to remember. Area of a circle. To find the area of the circle, you're going to take pi times radius squared. Now let's think about why that's true. Let's draw a circle. Okay, here's my circle. And let's say that I divide my circle into equal pieces of pi. Now, I'm not going to be able to draw this perfectly, but we'll get the general idea. Alright. Now let's say that I cut my circle here, and I stretch it out. So let's take say this is my circle unrolled. Okay, so this line equals the circumference, or 2 radiuses times pi, because that's circumference. And then let's take these triangles. Let's say that my triangles are also here. Let's try this again. Let's just draw them out. So this is like my circle here laid out. And these might be a little bit curved here. Okay. Now, the height of each of these, right here, any of these, would be my radius. So if I wanted to find the area of this rectangle here, that's formed by opening up my circle with all my little triangles, I could multiply the circumference around my circle times the radius of my circle. Right? So that would give me 2r times pi. Okay? Well, I can multiply these two by each other, and I get 2r squared times pi. Now what's interesting here is I really don't want this part of my rectangle, or my parallelogram. I really only want these triangles here. I only want to know the area of these to find the area of my circle. So I really want half of this rectangle. So I'm going to divide it by 2. This 2 and this 2 cancel out, and I'm left with r squared pi, or pi r squared, equals the area of a circle. And that's where this formula comes from. So now let's apply it. Let's say I have this circle. Its radius equals 5 millimeters. If I take my formula, area equals pi r squared, and I plug in what I know that area equals, pi is 3.14 times 5 squared. Now, order of operations tells us that we have to start by squaring, or doing our powers. So area equals 3.14 times 25. And then if I multiply this out, 3.14 times 25, I get 78 and 5/10 millimeters squared. And that would be the area of this circle here. Let's look at another one. Now this one, we know the diameter. We really only want the radius. Okay? So we're going to take 11 and divide it by 2. And that's going to give us 5.5. And that equals the radius. So if we plug this into our formula again of area equals pi r squared, we'll get area equals pi times 5.5 squared. Alright, well, if we square 5.5, we get area equals, and I'm going to convert this to 3.14, times 30 and 25 hundredths. Okay, that's 5.5 squared. Now if I multiply these two by each other, I get 94 and 985 thousandths. And it was in yards, so it's yards squared. Let's do one more. The radius here is 2.4. So area equals pi times 2.4 squared. Remember, I have to do my squaring first. So I'm going to get area equals pi times 5 and 76 hundredths. Let's turn this into 3.14 times 5 and 76 hundredths. And I get 18 and 864 10,000ths meters squared, because it was in meters. That would be the area of this circle. And that's the end of video 52 on circumference and area of circles.